Okay, hello everybody. How are you? We are here in the Detachment from the World, the book Detachment from the World. We are toward the end of it, and we're going to come on book 38, page 1081. And we've started a series of how the Bodhisattvas the enlightening beings, Bodhisattvas, have 10 kinds of feet, hands. It starts with the feet and the hands, and goes on with all kinds of parts of the body of the Bodhisattva, the enlightening being. Of course, ending up to having those kind of hands of a Buddha, feet of a Buddha, this kind of thing. So it's going on in great detail, describing the equipment, the faculties of a being, of an enlightening being. And it's quite interesting in that the Buddhists from the beginning believed that what we are is a kind of, we're processes. The idea that we're just some sort of physical body inside a skin was not really how even an ordinary scientific analysis of the being that they presented us. And for example, I always hark to the example that right now I'm sitting here and I have a visual field, which is the interior of this room, plus some of the forest outside. I'm here at Menla in front of the Medicine Buddha in a favorite place I have to work in. And I am also that visual field. I'm not just the body and the eyes and the surface of the eye. Me is inside the eye and what's outside is not me. My visual field is part of my process. And my audio field, smell, taste, touch. Of course, taste and touch are really close to the skin. But hearing and seeing and smelling sometimes can create a field around you. So we're like field beings to start with. And we, as field beings, we are kind of like a blur, like a larger entity. And we collide with other beings because we share visual fields, although each one sees the same field somewhat differently. And in a way, because also we construct the field, we have images like a window, a forest, a room, a ceiling, a floor. And these images, and then what the floor is, wooden floor, tile ceiling, etc., and glass window, the images project over sheer atomic processes of photons, light particles, presumed light particles, I should say, bouncing off some surfaces, coming to us and then going into the nerves, which themselves are atoms, and it's kind of a molecular atomic process. And then we know from quantum that the process subatomic is not really pin downable. And so we are this process, and language, therefore, through our concepts of window, floor, wall, door, hall, painting on the wall, etc. All of these concepts, we are kind of building our field and structuring it all the time as we move through it. We're interpreting, building, constructing it. And what we really ultimately are is unknown. Actually, if you go to the unknowability that has been discovered at the root of matter, where the so-called scientific materialists have discovered that they don't know what matter is, because they can't find any ultimate particle. It seems to be nothing when they completely go and continue to analyze. It's dissolvable under analysis. Actually, it's emptiness, as the Buddha discovered, as a scientific discovery. And when you discover that, it takes a combination of conceptually discovering it and experientially getting so refined in your experience of yourself as a field that you can experience every aspect of the field from every aspect of the field. In other words, I see the wall over there, but that's because particles of light reflect off that, relating to a certain color. Certain ones are absorbed, certain ones are not. Shoots over here at practically instantaneous speed because of the speed of light, sort of where fields expand to infinity, actually, light, the whole issue of speed of light. And then interact with also nerves and subatomic particles and whatever pure energy waves with the optic nerves, and then that all shoots through like the lightning storm inside the synapses in the brain. And I come up with the idea of I'm looking at a wall, which is like a sketch of an extraordinarily complex process. But if I develop enough stability and subtlety in my perception, I can get down to being aware of the molecular and atomic and subatomic and pure energy interaction involved in seeing a wall and structuring the field around me as a wall. So I could develop X-ray vision actually by going in the gaps between the so-called atoms, and I could do all kinds of extraordinary and supernormal things which are not supernatural, because naturally speaking, when I see that, all these atomic processes that I'm identifying as being in my field are interacting. And my awareness could go down to the refined level of sort of being aware of all of that. Then I would sort of consciously be aware of the subatomic and even the energy process of being a field. All right? So now when we go through this sort of, and therefore, because the Buddhists had that idea, even when they were far short of such a profound experiential deconstruction and seeing through the fact that any particular level of magnification or microfication or macrofication is somehow arbitrary, and seeing through that, and even finding the deepest level of the pure clear light of the void energy that sustains it all, that is it all, that she's shaped into all of that by these living processes, then like they have like the 5 faculties: faith, will, attention, concentration, and analytic insight, as being 5 faculties. And those faculties become like eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and right, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. I guess is that 5? That should be eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. Yes, and so then it's faith or trust. That is openness to connection. Will, wanting to do something with it, moving within it in an ameliorative way. Etc., and then for being able to focus and then be able to analytically move around in it by understanding it. And that becomes a different body. Or if you do the 4 immeasurables, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, then you become this field of love. You no longer even feel your body with hands and fingers and things. So it is in this light that in this detachment from the world, the enlightening being is said to be growing their faculties into where they become a kind of universal Buddha faculty. So for example, in the hands, the great, I'm going to go back, we read that last time, but I'm going to start there again. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of hands of deep faith. So your faith touches, in a way, faith, we think of faith, of course, as faith in some proposition, like faith in a credo or thing like that. Whereas trust is just being openness to connection with the world, basic trust. Erik Erikson, the great psychologist Erik Erikson's idea that basic trust of an infant is what forms a decent personality of a person later, coming from their connectedness with their mother and so on at the early times of life, and even probably coming from former life from our kind of psychology. But anyway, he didn't have that. So that's a trust, And so the hands of deep faith, wholeheartedly accepting and ultimately taking up the teachings of Buddhas. But in this case, the Buddha's teaching is always the opening teaching, the teaching of freeing yourself from rigid identification with this or that, and opening yourself to really overcoming the division between self and other and so on. That's what Buddha's teachings always are, whether they're verbal or just by the presence of a Buddha, there is a teaching. Okay, and wholeheartedly accepting and ultimately taking up the teaching of Buddhas, meaning taking up receptivity of life, and being open to what it is, and to feeling it and touching it and embracing it and understanding it and so on. Hands of giving, satisfying all those who seek according to their desires. So that's a hand, that's the openness again. The giving is, of course, the ultimate openness. Hands of initiating greetings, extending their right palm to welcome and lead. So that's to take the ordinary hand and expanding it to greet someone, Hands of honoring Buddhas, tirelessly gathering blessings and virtues, and being open to benevolent beings and trusting there are such beings and gathering blessings and virtues from them. Hands of learning and skillfulness, cutting off the doubts of all sentient beings. So then learning, again, it means to be open and to feel what's around you and see it in its detail and look at it from different angles, and that's a learning about it, And learning and skillfulness then means interacting with it in a positive way. And kind of artfulness and understanding that life is kind of art, and how you interact with things, there's a skill and an art to it. Cutting off the doubts of all sentient beings. So these hands of a Bodhisattva lead beings to be free of kind of being crippled by not feeling untrusted, suspicious about life, Hands of fostering transcendence of the triple world, extending them to sentient beings and extricating them from the mire of craving. So now you go beyond any particular identity and location in the world, go beyond the world of form, of formlessness, and the world of desire, and extending those hands that are sort of beyond the world to beings, and that by touching them with a hand that is sort of is aware of its being outside of any of these different worlds of identity, of desire, and sort of adopting a particular divine form, or being absolutely formless and bodiless, and then extricating them automatically by extending one's hand, those kind of hands to them, extricating them from the mire of craving. And why does that extricate them from the mire of craving? Because when you transcend the world, you don't go into nothing. The opposite of some sort of location in the world is not nothing. It is being in the void, and the void is this pure energy, this infinite, pure, clear light energy, is what Buddha discovered. There is no such thing as nothing. And although maybe at the brink of it you feel like it's going to be nothing because you don't see any formulated, structured object, nevertheless it is this, what they call clear light or transparency, which is an infinite, quiescent energy that is what everything is, actually. Every structured thing is still that. That's what it is, according to the Buddha's discovery, Which means that the sort of absolute is all the relative things. And it is, you don't have to go, when you transcend them, you think you're kind of getting away from all of them, and then you reach a point seemingly beyond them in any differentiated form, and then you land in the sort of infinite energy that is them, and then that doesn't preclude them just being there as they were, but now you're free of identifying self and other and all sorts of different things. So when you extend that kind of a hand to beings, they feel they no longer need desire. I need a bigger thing over there. I need to get to a better place over here. I need more things accumulated with me here. Instead, they realize that everything is there, is them and theirs, and they are one with it all. Just touching the hand, in other words. It's really, if you look at it deeply, that's why then you no longer crave, because you're all bliss. You're made of bliss. You realize that your actual being is bliss, is the bliss of complete openness and freedom. Hands of settlement on the other shore, saving drowning beings from the four torrents. So now you're on the safe shore of clear light, of freedom, and then they are rushing, thinking they're going to get somewhere better, and they're in the torrent of desire for existence, desire for non-existence, escapism, and greed, desire to consume things, and desire to destroy anything harmful to themselves, the four torrents. Hands of generosity with right teaching, revealing all sublime principles. So then that's how teaching is the way, extending the hand is, when the hand is teaching, it extends in such a way that the being feels the connection to the freedom and the transcendence of being trapped in a particular separated situation, an ignorance-driven misknowing, thinking that I'm separate and everything is confronting me and I have to get somewhere better and Get away from it all. Hands of skill. Surprisingly, one of the torrents is the wish to destroy yourself. Beings have that, thinking that they're going to hit nothing, thinking that they're going to just get away from everything, and that's a way of not being bothered. Hands of skillful use of philosophies, quelling diseases of body and mind with the medicine of knowledge and wisdom. And that's where the reaching out is done by presenting different paths of thought to other beings where when their thought goes on them, they find more freedom and more knowledge. Hands always holding jewels of knowledge, unfolding the light of truth to obliterate the darkness of afflictions. So this is like when you have kind of, or like a light, a jewel is sort of like a light where you shine a light for others to see the reality of things and obliterate the darkness of being addicted and afflicted by all kinds of unnecessary sufferings. These are the 10. Based on these, enlightening beings can acquire the supreme hands of Buddhas, covering all worlds in the 10 directions. So the Buddha's hands are pure light, and light, as you know, is everywhere. That's what the speed of light means, that when you get to light, even in Einstein's theory, since he couldn't really grasp what light was, light becomes a kind of absolute for a materialist who wants to locate everything in material measurable terms, because light is simultaneously, its mass becomes infinite at its natural speed, meaning it's automatically everywhere. And this is one of the secret arbitrarinesses of physics, is that a photon, particle of light, is just an imaginary thing. In a way, there can't be a particle of light because it's always at its maximum speed, because light is always everywhere, which I like. So they just made up the idea that it could be a particle, and yet zipping around at an infinity-producing speed. That's a very rough thing. Anyway, okay, never mind. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of guts. I love that term. That means the content inside your trunk, your body. Guts free from deception, their hearts being pure. Guts free from falsehood, being honest by nature. Non-prevaricating guts, having no crookedness. Non-swindling guts, having no greed for anything. Guts cutting off addictions, being full of wisdom. Pure wisdom being bliss. So you're not therefore nothing. You don't need something that you think is going to give you more bliss than you can get addicted to. Pure-minded guts, being free from all evils. Guts examining food and drink, remembering reality. That means you would have a good diet if you remember reality, that is. You would not take anything harmful to you or others. You would not drink anything harmful to you or others, because you would know the reality of things. Guts observing non-creation, being aware of interdependent relativistic origination. Guts aware of all ways of emancipation, fully developing the will, that the will coming from the freedom, knowing all the ways of emancipation, wanting that freedom. Guts rid of the defilement of all extreme views, enabling all sentient beings to enter into the guts of Buddha. These are the 10. No extreme, locations, identities, like, rigid, attached to this or that, type of thing. But always going to the openness, going to the middle, going to the openness, Negation is the way of reaching there, because when you negate something, you open yourself. And of course, people think when you negate something, you achieve nothing, because nothing is a way of getting beyond wherever you're stuck. But actually, since there is no nothing, you go right through the seeming threshold of nothing, and you find yourself in the field of infinite energy, of the field of infinite blessing, the field of infinite goodness, Samantabhadra of the universe. These are the 10 kinds of guts, the Buddha gut. Based on these, enlightening beings can acquire the supreme vast guts of Buddhas, able to contain all sentient beings. That's really something amazing, So medicine Buddha, is blue, because blue is the transmutation of the energy of anger or hate, meaning hating any suffering, and therefore it explodes everything, and it destroys any kind of limitation, and it finds the perfection of the universe and the purity of the universe. It's all infinite perfection of the universe wisdom, which means it's the unification of the subjectivity with the clear light, where it becomes the whole object of the clear light. And since the clear light is not some light in between dark things, since it's what all dark things are made of, like emptiness, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, matter is emptiness, emptiness is matter. So, but then when you realize that from the emptiness side, so to speak, then all material things are equally luminous to you. So that's called transparency, clear light. Okay? And that therefore Buddha contains all beings, in that the Buddha is one with the infinity of the clear light, and he sees all the beings as simply the clear light. Like I always think of that artist Joseph Cornell, somewhat a little bit more esoteric than Picasso, but some of you may have heard of him, who used to make these mirrored boxes that you'd look in, that would have crystal glass things, transparent things in the boxes. And when you'd look in, you'd just see your reflection in many ways, depending on how many facets of the mirrored surfaces there were. And then you could change, and you would see through any object that was in it because it was transparent. But then by reflecting light, you could sort of pick out the surface of the little reindeer or the little Santa or the little Buddha or the little crystal shell or whatever it was that was completely transparent, not any kind of cloudy crystal, but completely transparent, so that you were in this field where you could choose to pick out the discrete objects, or you could just see the open field and actually bump into yourself through the mirrored surface, depending on the angle. And so reality becomes like that for a Buddha, except, even again, the Buddha's feeling of being a field is experienced seeingly or knowingly or experientially from every angle, from every perspective. So, for example, in tantras, some of the tantric paintings behind me, when you see a deity with multiple eyes, that simply symbolizes seeing things from all different directions. Actually, the great American philosopher and teacher and enlightening being, Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, he annoyed the people at Harvard with their extremist views at the divinity school by saying that the ideal was to be like a giant eye in the middle of nature looking in all directions simultaneously. But even in the Buddha, it's more complicated than that, because you're seeing from the things out seemingly previously you thought were outside yourself. You see yourself. You become completely part of the transparency. So there's no subject-object division. The objective is subjective, the subjective is objective. And you are awareness that is like a CAT scan. It's like infiltrated, permeating everything, which is something I can't conceive quite. I don't know if you can. But I don't know a better image than that, frankly. But I love it, the one about the guts. That's totally great. Okay, great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of internal organs. Perpetuating the seed of Buddhas as an organ of enlightening beings, manifesting the immeasurable spiritual power of the Buddha teaching, causing the seed of the teaching to grow as an organ of enlightening beings, generating the immense light of knowledge, preserving the seed of the spiritual community as an organ of enlightening beings, enabling them to gain access to the irreversible wheel of teaching, awakening those who are rightly stabilized as an organ of enlightening beings, instantly adapting to the time, fully developing unstable sentient beings as an organ of enlightening beings, producing continuity of causal basis, conceiving compassion for wrongly stabilized sentient beings as an organ of enlightening beings, causing thorough development of causal basis for the future. This is to say, you can't really awaken someone who's not stabilized in the sense of this sort of self-other tension and stress is balanced in such a way they're open enough to the other and they're easy enough about being the self that the self-other boundary is permeated by love, by compassion, by trust, by friendliness, and so on. and therefore they can be awakened because they're not overshocked to feel they are, to expand their awareness to be everything around them. But the unstable one would just completely, because they're so frightened of that stress, to sort of be outside of themselves would cause them to damage themselves or someone else. So then you can only create a causal basis for them. Fulfill, some sort of way of them finding their traction in a sort of more open type of selfness and otherness. Fulfilling the indestructible bases of the 10 powers of Buddha, which is like extreme interconnectedness with beings in a really benevolent way and in a beneficial way, that conquer the armies of demons. Right, because even demons are then permeated by such a being, and then they feel more balanced and stable themselves, since beings are demons because they're very unstable and harmful, because they're creating that frontier of the self-other boundary is so stressed out, so stressful, because so much harm goes back and forth across it. Fear and hatred and anger and harm. The supremely fearless lion's roar is an organ of enlightening beings, gladdening all sentient beings. The lion's roar is the roar of selflessness, actually, is what that means, like, rah, no self, when Buddha goes, selfless. In other words, that's like a roar of expanding to embrace all beings, something like that. Attaining the 18 unique qualities, it's a teaching of emptiness, the womb of compassion, is the lion's roar. Shunyata karuna garbham. That's the famous lion's roar, Buddha's lion's roar. Attaining the 18 unique qualities of Buddhas is an organ of enlightening beings with knowledge penetrating everywhere. Again, these are all ways of expressing the inconceivability I started out with today. Knowing all, being everything, everywhere, and totally aware of it. Knowing all sentient beings, all lands, all things, and all Buddhas is an organ of enlightening beings, clearly seeing all in a single instant. Oy, 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 oy. That single instant incorporating all time, actually. These are the 10 based. Based on these, enlightening beings can attain the indestructible internal organs of great knowledge with supreme virtues of Buddhas. So, it's like the lungs of a Buddha are just everywhere where the oxygen is. They don't have to suck it in from outside. And the exhalation of a Buddha is like all the plants, They're all already there, and that the Buddha is all the trees too, not just all the beings, all the people, And the heartbeat, the Buddha doesn't need blood, ordinary blood, because Buddha's bloodstream is the fluid, the element of water, of cohesion and fluid and connectedness of all life, and so on. So it doesn't need to pump anything within a skin like an ordinary heart. These are the 10. Based on these, much less consuming things from other, and then having to digest them, and then having to excrete what's not useful within them, and so on and so on. It's not needed, because the Buddha is everything. Amazing, really. These are the 10. Based on these, enlightening beings can attain the indestructible internal organs of great knowledge and supreme virtues of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of heart. Oh my, here we go. A heart of diligence, fulfilling all tasks. A heart of perseverance, accumulating, embellishing virtuous practices. A heart of great courage and strength, crushing all armies of demons. A heart acting according to truth, extinguishing all addictions. A heart of non-regression, never ceasing until enlightenment is reached. A heart of inherent purity, knowing the mind is immovable, not having any attachments. A heart of knowledge of sentient beings, adapting to their understandings and inclinations to emancipate them. A heart of great kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, leading into the way of enlightenment, knowing the various understandings and inclinations of sentient beings and saving them without using separate paths. That's using the four immeasurables as a way of totally expanding to embrace and to unify oneself with all beings, to have them in your guts, as they say. A heart, they are your guts, actually. If you're a Buddha, a heart of emptiness, signlessness, wishlessness, and non-fabrication or non-creation, seeing the characteristics of the triple world without grasping them, that is, of the formless deities, formless realm deities, and the formless realm, really, which mean non-material, which mean bodiless realms, the realms of pure body, pure, non-dual, non-gendered, divine embodiment of the Brahma realm, and the realms of desire, including the six heavens and all the human and other human and titanic and all the other, and animal and preta and hell. Every kind of range of sort of differentiated being who's desperately seeking something else. A heart adorned with an indestructible, therefore, realm of desire. Heart adorned with indestructible supreme treasury of marks of felicity, thoroughly invulnerable to all demons. That's the 10th one. So happy. They're the marks of felicity make them invulnerable to all demons. How would they do that? Based on these enlightening beings, because when a demon encounters such a being, they realize they are that being. Somehow, therefore, they become temporarily neutralized by being satisfied, actually, not just crushed or destroyed. But their demonic structuring and harmfulness is temporarily, definitely destroyed. When in the presence of that, at least temporarily. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme heart of the treasury of the light of great knowledge of Buddhas. Right? Infinite, that's infinite knowledge, knowing everything by being everything. And great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of armor. They wear the armor of great benevolence, rescuing all sentient beings. They wear the armor of great compassion, enduring all suffering. They wear the armor of great commitment, fulfilling all their tasks. They wear the armor of dedication, constructing the adornments of all Buddhas. They wear the armor of virtue, benefiting all sentient beings. They wear the armor of the ways of transcendence, that's generosity, morality, tolerance, creativity, concentration, and wisdom, liberating all conscious beings. They wear the armor of wisdom, destroying the darkness of addiction of all sentient beings. They wear the armor of skill in means, skill in arts, skill in liberative techniques, generating universal roots of goodness. They wear the armor of firm stability and freedom from distraction of the mind, of universal knowledge, not enjoying other vehicles. They love their Mahayana, their universal vehicle, the one that takes you everywhere to freedom. They wear the armor of single-minded certainty, free from doubts and confusion in regard to all things. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can wear the supreme armor of Buddhas and crush all demon armies. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of weapon. Giving is a weapon of enlightening beings, destroying all stinginess. Self-control is a weapon of enlightening beings, getting rid of all crime. Impartiality is a weapon of enlightening beings, removing all discrimination. Wisdom is a weapon of enlightening beings, dissolving all addictions. Right livelihood is a weapon of enlightening beings, leading away from all wrong livelihood. Skill in means is a weapon of enlightening. Skill in arts is a weapon of enlightening beings, manifesting in all places. In general, all addictions such as desire, wrath, and folly are weapons of enlightening beings because they liberate sentient beings through addictions. That's the esoteric, where even seeming negative energies can be turned by enlightening beings into the positive. Birth and death is a weapon of enlightening beings because they continue enlightening practices and teach sentient beings. Teaching the truth is a weapon of enlightening beings. Being able to break up all clinging. All knowledge is a weapon of enlightening beings because they do not give up the avenues of practice of enlightening beings. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can annihilate the addictions, bondage, and compulsions accumulated by all sentient beings in the long night of misknowledge and ignorance. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of head. The head of nirvana, as no one can see the top. The head, yeah, that's a thing, Buddha's dome, the Ushnisha, as it is called, actually is just an opening funnel tube to the ultimate clear light, in the sense of there's no closure to it, and therefore no one can get above it. in a way, because if they go up above it, it's pure clear light, so they dissolve into clear light if they try to go above, which only gods might try to do, but they basically don't need to, because then it sort of fills them in everywhere. The head of nirvana, as no one can see the top. The head of honor, respected by all humans and gods. The head of universal higher understanding, being supreme in the universe. The head of foremost roots of goodness, honored by the sentient beings of the three worlds. The head bearing sentient beings. Even, in fact, of course the three worlds honor a Buddha, because a Buddha is an ideal form of life, where this is a life that is sort of connected to everyone and everything, and is 100% loving and good, and capable and powerful, and able to do anything for anyone, and even restrained as regarding to creating any situation which would cause any suffering to anyone, and therefore not a creator or not a god like that, but otherwise a completely all-embracing, all-beneficial being. So even if one doesn't believe there is such a thing, one honors, if there was, one would honor such a being. Even the cynic who says there can't be anybody like that, in a way, by doing that, they're honoring a being that is like that. And in this tradition, in this culture, on this planet, and nowadays even in our West, we're coming to begin to imagine that there might be such beings, might have been such a one, and might now even be innumerable such ones. And seeking then the fortune of encountering them is what we then would want to do. The head-bearing sentient beings developing an indestructible crown. So that means a crown of wisdom and freedom, and holding everyone on your head. The head of not despising others in all places, always respectful. The head of not, because of oneness with the other, one doesn't feel higher or better than them, actually. And one respects them because they all are capable of being Buddha and will be. And even if you're a Buddha, you see in the future where they are already, in a way, from your perspective, although you realize, of course, they're not from their own perspective. But your then only mission is, in relating to them, to help them find how they are, which you can see when it will happen even. The head of transcendent wisdom, nurturing all virtuous qualities. The head of union of knowledge and skill and means and arts, everywhere appearing in comparable forms, that is, presenting all kinds of things that would become doorways for people being able to imagine what you are as some sort of universal being. The head of teaching all sentient beings, taking all sentient beings as disciples. The head of preservation of the eye of reality, of Buddhas, able to perpetuate the seeds of the three treasures, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme head of knowledge and wisdom of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of eye. The flesh eye, seeing all forms. The celestial eye, seeing the minds of all sentient beings. The wisdom eye, seeing the ranges of the faculties of all sentient beings. The reality eye, seeing the true character of all things. The Buddha eye, seeing the 10 powers of the enlightened. The eye of knowledge, knowing and seeing all things. The eye of light, seeing the light of Buddha. The eye of leaving birth and death, seeing nirvana. The unobstructed eye, its vision without hindrance. The eye of omniscience, seeing the realm of reality in its universal aspect. Based on these 10, enlightening beings attain the eye of supreme knowledge of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of ear. Hearing the voice of praise, they eliminate craving. Hearing the voice of criticism, they eliminate anger. Hearing explanation of the 2 lesser vehicles of individual salvation, they do not cling to or seek them. Hearing of the path of enlightening beings, they rejoice greatly. Hearing of places of pain and trouble, such as the hells, they arouse great compassion and make vows of universal salvation. Hearing tell of the wonderful things of the human and celestial worlds, divine worlds, they know they are impermanent phenomena. Hearing praise of the virtues of Buddhas, they work diligently to quickly fulfill them. Hearing tell of such practices as the 6 ways of transcendence and the 4 means of integration, or the 4 social graces, they determine to practice them and reach their ultimate end. Hearing all sounds of the world, they know they are all like echoes and penetrate untold profound meanings. Great enlightening beings free from their first discrimination until they reach the sight of enlightenment, always hear the true teaching, yet do not give up the work of transforming sentient beings. I'm going to read that again. Great enlightening beings from their first determination, that's conceiving the spirit of enlightenment to become a Buddha for the sake of all beings, until they reach the sight of enlightenment where they sit under the tree in the Bodhimandala, always hear the true teaching, yet do not give up the work of transforming sentient beings. These are the 10. If enlightening beings accomplish these things, they will attain the supreme ear of the great wisdom of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of nose. When they smell foul things, they do not consider them foul. When they smell fragrances, they do not consider them fragrant. When they smell both fragrance and foulness, their minds are equanimous, abiding in relinquishment. If they smell the fragrance and foulness of people's clothes, bedding, or bodies, they can discern their conditions of greed, hate, and delusion, being great doctors. If they smell the scents of hidden repositories, plants and trees, and so on, they can discern them as if they were right before their eyes. If they smell scents from the hells below to the heavens above, they know the past deeds of beings there. If they smell the fragrance of generosity, morality, learning, and wisdom of Buddha's disciples, they remain steady in the will for omniscience and do not let it be distracted. If they smell the fragrances of all enlightening practices, they enter the state of Buddhahood by impartial wisdom. If they smell the fragrance of the sphere of knowledge of all Buddhas, they still do not give up the practices of enlightening beings. If enlightening beings accomplish these things, they will acquire the infinite, boundless nose of Buddha. And great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of tongue. A tongue that reveals and explains the acts of infinite sentient beings. A tongue that reveals and explains infinite doors to truth. A tongue that sings the praises of the infinite virtues of Buddhas. A tongue of infinite eloquence. A tongue that expounds aids to the path of the great vehicle. A tongue that covers all space. A tongue that illumines all Buddha fields. A tongue that awakens the understanding of all sentient beings. A tongue that causes all to praise the Buddhas. A tongue that defeats all demons and false teachers, destroys all addictions of birth and death, and fosters arrival at nirvana. If enlightening beings accomplish these things, they will acquire the supreme tongue of Buddhas, which covers all Buddha lands. In the Prajnaparamita 20,000 verse version, but before the Buddha teaches the Prajnaparamita transcendent wisdom, he sticks out his tongue, and from it a light comes out from the center of the tongue, and they suddenly see that there are Buddhas in infinite other worlds, just like this world, about to teach the Prajnaparamita, Transcendent Wisdom Sutra, and that their light is also in each of their tongues. So each of them are doing a special effect to begin the teaching of showing their interconnectedness in all of these worlds to all of the people in their audiences. And this is, of course, because this is to eliminate, the reason for doing is to show the amazing miraculousness of the cosmos, and to eliminate from people the idea that no one ever really understands anything, no one really gets it, there's this rare thing that's happening here, and I don't think I can really understand it, and so on, and show that the whole universe is enfolded in wisdom, transcendent wisdom. So that's the tongue. So they will acquire the supreme tongue of Buddhas, which covers it. Meanwhile, another sign of a Buddha is that he can touch what's called a supreme emanation body Buddha, the particular form like Shakyamuni Buddha was, 12 deeds and so on, coming at a certain time when the world is receptive to that. And he can touch his hairline with his tongue, and also the flaps, a wide part of the tongue, completely covers his face with his tongue. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of bodies. Human bodies to teach humans, non-human bodies to teach denizens of hells, animals, and hungry ghosts, celestial bodies to teach the beings of the realms of desire, form, and formlessness. And that means the gods of the desire realm, the gods of the form realm, and the formless deities. Learners' bodies to demonstrate the stage of learning. Non-learning bodies to demonstrate the stage of sainthood. Individual illuminates bodies to teach the way to enter the stage of individual enlightenment, Pratyeka Buddha that is. Enlightening beings' bodies to foster the accomplishment of the great vehicle. Buddha's bodies anointed by the water of knowledge, mentally produced bodies generated by adaptive skills, the uncontaminated reality body effortlessly manifesting the bodies of all sentient beings. If they accomplish these, they attain the supreme body of Buddha. So that indicates, like, when you are a Buddha, then you feel you are all the beings. So in a way, you are sustaining them all. You are being them all, even the bad ones, not only the good ones. You are all the beings, and you feel exactly what they are doing. And you feel exactly where they are being pushed in ways that are undesirable for them and for others. And you therefore can manifest and emanate embodiments or creations or constructs or places or anything, that whatever it is that helps the beings at whatever condition they are, which you know by being them, to become free and Buddhas themselves, to expand their being, to become open, to become trusting, to become loving, to become friendly, to become wise, to become concentrated. So that's quite amazing. That's the reality, uncontaminated reality body effortlessly manifesting the bodies of all sentient beings. You feel yourself merged with the life force of the beings. You feel yourself merged also with the confusion of the beings. But you are knowing, because you are a Buddha, that their life force, their enlightenment force, their Buddha nature, their potential emptiness, their emptiness and their potential enlightened awareness of that emptiness, compassionate awareness, you are able to sort of, by being them, you can push that side of them in some sense. But they only can see it as coming from them. Otherwise, you're sort of body snatching them, and that won't help them. They then resist. They'll resist you. They'll think they're possessed by someone, and they'll resist you. Great enlightening beings, and they'll clamp down worse, feel they're being assaulted from within. So it's a very delicate issue, and that's why you have an emanation body of some outside being that they then relate to, that tells them something. It doesn't have to be human, it doesn't have to talk. It could be a tree, could be a rock, a stone, could be a... Actually, I know a lady who was a disciple of a very great Zen master, Sasaki Roshi. And he was telling her that it was time for her to go out among people and she could get no more from him as a Roshi. But she had done a lot of meditating. She was an advanced student. And so she was resisting this and wanted to just hang around with him. And so she had one last sesshin with him. And then she came during the Dokusan, the interview with the teacher in the sesshin. And she walked in and she sat down and she sort of arranged herself. And then when she looked up, she saw in place of him a rock. Not a stone sculpture of him, but a rock, the same size as him, but it was just a rock. It wasn't he turned into a rock somehow. And she saw that. And then that really, look what you're going to get from a stone. You're not going to get a teaching. So she bowed to the rock and left. And then she began to develop further, as you sometimes need to, by engaging with people outside the Zendo. And when she told me the story, I didn't think she was having psychosis or anything. I think he really did it, that guy. And I believe that, because when I met that guy the first time, I was late to a lecture he was giving at Smith College in a library room. And he was sitting at a table in front of it, no barrier between him and the student. And Tayuno, my dear friend, the Professor Tayuno, was translating for him, and they were talking. I don't know what they said. I didn't hear anything because I came in quietly in the back, trying to come in quietly because I was late from a snowstorm or I don't know what, coming from another class of mine in a different town, wanting to see and meet this man. And when I walked into the room and saw the sort of tableau in front of me, I almost vomited because I suddenly felt I was upside down in the room, and that the floor, everything was up. I was hanging upside down, and all the people sitting were upside down. He was exactly like he was, but we were all upside down. I actually physically felt upside down, and what do you do when you're upside down to prevent yourself from falling? You can't grab a chair or something near you because you feel you're in the ceiling and you're going to fall. And I kind of flailed a little bit, But luckily I was so out of, it wasn't embarrassing. People didn't know I was in the back. And then it flipped back over, which I took to mean a field of liberation of the man was so huge. He was indicating something. He was helping me break my addiction to thinking that this is it. What I'm seeing is the ultimately reality in some way. He was putting wasn't consciously doing anything, but the field of his awareness was such that it was wide open. It wasn't like fixated. He wasn't reaffirming our own fixation on the material, on our projection of seeming intrinsic reality into the things around us, which I took as a sign of his deep, deep attained wisdom, which when subsequent knowing him over years, nothing convinced me otherwise. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of mind. A mind of leadership, generating all roots of goodness. A stable mind with profound faith, steadfast and unwavering. A mind of profound penetration, understanding in accord with the teachings of Buddhas. A mind of insight, knowing the mentalities of all sentient beings. An undisturbed mind, not adulterated with any addictions. A clear, clean mind, that's okay. A clear, clean mind, which externals cannot stain or adhere to. A mind observing sentient beings well, not missing proper timing in dealing with them. A mind choosing well what to do, never making a mistake anywhere. A mind closely guarding the senses, taming them and not letting them run wild. A mind skilled in entering concentration, entering deeply into the concentrations of Buddhas without egoism or selfishness. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme mind of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of action: hearing the teaching out of fondness for truth, expounding the teaching to benefit sentient beings, getting rid of covetousness, anger, delusions, and fear by taming their own minds, action in the realm of desire to teach beings in that realm, concentration in the realms of form and formlessness to foster quick return to non-contamination, aiming for the meaning of the teaching to quickly attain wisdom, action in all realms of life to freely edify sentient beings, action in all Buddha lands honoring all Buddhas, nirvanic action, not cutting off the continuity of birth and death, yes, fulfilling all qualities of Buddhahood without giving up application of the principles of enlightening beings. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can achieve the action of Buddhas that has no coming or going. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of abiding. Abiding in the will for enlightenment, never forgetting it. Abiding in the transcendent ways, not tiring of fostering enlightenment. Abiding in the teaching of truth, increasing wisdom. Abiding in dispassion, realizing great meditational concentration, abiding in conformity to universal knowledge, austerity, contentment, moderation in food, clothing, and dwelling, and getting rid of evil because few desires means few concerns, abiding in deep faith, bearing the true teaching, abiding in the company of the enlightened to learn the conduct of Buddhas, abiding in generation of spiritual powers to fulfill great knowledge, abiding in attainment of acceptance, fulfilling the forecast of enlightenment, abiding in the sight of enlightenment, fulfilling power, fearlessness, and all aspects of Buddhahood. That is when you get to be under the tree in your own future supreme emanation body of Buddhahood. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can reach the Buddha's supreme abiding in omniscience. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of sitting. The sitting of universal monarchs, promoting all virtuous behavior. The sitting of guardian deities, independently establishing the Buddha teaching in all worlds. The sitting of Indra, king of gods, being superior lords of all sentient beings. The sitting of Brahma, being in control of their own and others' minds. The sitting of lions, being able to expound the truth. The sitting of right teaching, holding forth by means of mental command and intellectual powers. Steadfast sitting, vowing to reach the ultimate end. The sitting of great benevolence, bringing happiness to all evil sentient beings. The sitting of great compassion, tirelessly enduring all pains. Adamantine sitting, conquering demons and false teachers. Based on these, enlightening beings can attain the Buddha's supreme sitting of true awareness. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of reclining. The reclining of great silent tranquility because of practicing in accord with principle. The reclining of concentration because of body and mind being supple. The reclining of Brahma because of not disturbing self or others. The reclining of good works because of having no regrets afterwards. The reclining of true faith because of being unshakable. The reclining of the right path because of awakening by good companions. The reclining of sublime aspirations because of skillful dedication. The reclining of completion of all tasks because of having accomplished all that is to be done. The reclining of relinquishment of all effort because of thorough training. Based on these, enlightening beings can attain the supreme reclining of the great teaching of Buddhas and be able to awaken all sentient beings. So even lying down, you can help beings awaken. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of abode. The abode of great goodwill, being impartial toward all kinds of sentient beings. The abode of great compassion, not slighting the uncultivated. The abode of great joy, aloof from all vexations. The abode of great equanimity, regarding the created and uncreated equally. The abode of all transcendent ways, being led by the aspiration for enlightenment. The abode of universal emptiness by virtue of skillful analysis. The abode of signlessness, not leaving the absolute state. The abode of wishlessness, examining the experience of taking on life. The abode of recollection and awareness by virtue of full development of recognition of truth. The abode of equality of all things by virtue of having gained the prediction of Buddhahood. Based on these 10 enlightening which you can only gain from a Buddha, enlightening beings can reach the supreme abode of Buddhas where there is no obstruction. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of sphere of action. They take realistic mindfulness as their sphere of action as they fulfill the points of mindfulness. They take all realms of being as their sphere of action as they become truly aware of the implications of the teaching. They take wisdom as their sphere of action, gaining the joy of Buddhas. They take the transcendent ways as their sphere of action as they fulfill omniscience. They take the 4 integrative practices or social graces as their sphere of action as they educate sentient beings. They take birth and death as their sphere of action as they accomplish roots of goodness. They take bantering with all sentient beings as their sphere of action as they teach them according to their needs and cause them to become free. They take spiritual powers as their sphere of action as they know the realms of the senses of all sentient beings. They take skill in arts as their sphere of action, uniting them with transcendent wisdom. They take the sight of enlightenment as their sphere of action as they attain universal knowledge without stopping the practices of enlightening beings. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can reach the supreme sphere of action of great wisdom of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of observation. Observation knowing all acts, seeing all details. Observation knowing various tendencies, not grasping sentient beings. Observation knowing faculties, comprehending the non-existence of faculties. Observation knowing phenomena, not violating the realm of reality. Observation seeing the verities of Buddhahood, cultivating the enlightened eye. Observation attaining wisdom, explaining things as they really are. Observation accepting the non-origination of things, definitely comprehending the teaching of Buddha. Observation in the state of non-regression, destroying all addictions and transcending the 3 worlds and the stages of the lesser vehicles. Observation in the stage of coronation, by virtue of unshakable mastery of all Buddha teachings. That's the 10th stage of Bodhisattva, where you're crowned by Buddhas, by all the Buddhas. Observation and concentration with hyper-conscious knowledge, practicing charity everywhere as Buddhist service. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supremely great observational knowledge of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of universal observation. They observe all who come seeking of them, satisfying them without aversion. They observe all immoral sentient beings and establish them in the pure precepts of Buddhas. They observe all malicious sentient beings and settle them in the power of enlightened tolerance. They observe all lazy sentient beings and urge them to be diligent and not give up bearing the burden of the great vehicle. They observe all confused sentient beings and get them to abide in the state of universal knowledge of Buddhas, where there is no distraction. They observe all deluded sentient beings and clear away their doubts and break down reification. They observe all impartial good friends and follow their instructions to live by the Buddha teachings. They observe all principles they hear and quickly attain realizational insight into the supreme meaning. They observe the infinite sentient beings, never abandoning the power of great compassion. They observe the teachings of all Buddhas and quickly manage to accomplish universal knowledge. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the universal observation of supreme wisdom of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of springing. What? The springing of a majestic bull, overshadowing all dragons, goblins, centaurs, Gandharvas, and other creatures. The springing of a majestic elephant, their minds well tamed and gentle, carrying all sentient beings. The springing of a great water spirit, a dragon, producing dense clouds of the great teaching, flashing the lightning of liberation, reverberating with the thunder of truth, and showering the sweet rain of the spiritual faculties and powers, the elements of enlightenment, meditations, liberations, and concentrations. The springing of the great golden-winged bird, evaporating the water of covetousness, breaking the shell of delusion, catching the evil poisonous dragons of addiction, and lifting beings out of the ocean of suffering of birth and death. The springing of the great majestic lion, resting secure in fearless, impartial great knowledge, and using that as a weapon, crushing demons and false teachers. The springing of courage and strength, able to destroy the enemy addictions on the great battlefield of birth and death. The springing of great knowledge, knowing the elements of body, mind, and sense experience, as well as all other interdependent productions, and freely explaining all things. The springing of mental command, retaining teachings by the power of recollection and awareness, and expounding them according to the faculties of sentient beings. The springing of intellectual powers, uninhibited and swift, analyzing everything and causing everyone to receive benefit and be happy. The springing of realization of thusness, fulfilling all aids to the way, to omniscience, and with instantaneous wisdom attaining all that can be attained, understanding all that can be understood, sitting on a lion throne, conquering hostile demons, and realizing unexcelled, complete, perfect enlightenment. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can achieve the supreme springing of Buddhas in the midst of all things. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of lion's roar. They declare, I will surely attain true enlightenment. This is the great lion's roar of the determination for enlightenment. I will enable those who have not yet transcended the world to transcend, liberate those who are not yet liberated, pacify those who are not yet at peace, and enable those who have not attained nirvana to attain it. This is the great lion's roar of great compassion. I will perpetuate the seeds of the Buddha, of the teaching, and the harmonious community. This is the great lion's roar of requiting the benevolence of the Buddhas. I will purify all Buddha lands. This is the great lion's roar of ultimately firm commitment. I will get rid of all evil ways and difficult situations. This is the lion's roar of personally maintaining pure conduct. I will fully attain the adorning features of body, speech, and mind of all Buddhas. This is the great lion's roar of tirelessly seeking virtue. I will fully accomplish the knowledge of all Buddhas. This is the great lion's roar of tirelessly seeking knowledge. I will attain all demons. I will annihilate all demons and all the works of demons. This is the great lion's roar of cultivating right practice to stop afflictions and addictions. I will realize that all things are selfless, without being, without life, without personality, empty, signless, wishless, and pure as space. This is the great lion's roar of the acceptance of the non-origination of all things. Enlightening beings in their last life shake all Buddha lands and make them all pure. Thereupon the Indras, Brahmas, and guardian deities come and praise them and entreat them. Please, enlightening being with the truth of birthlessness, appear to be born. The enlightening beings then observe all sentient beings in the world by the unobstructed eye of wisdom and see that there are none who compare to themselves. So they appear to be born in royal palaces, walk 7 steps by themselves, and declare in a great lion's roar, I am supreme in the world. I will forever end the realm of birth and death. This is the great lion's roar of doing what one says. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supremely great lion's roar of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure giving, impartial giving, not discriminating among sentient beings, giving accord to wishes, satisfying others, unconfused giving, causing benefit to be gained, giving appropriately, knowing superior, mediocre, and inferior, giving without dwelling, not seeking reward, open giving without clinging attachment, total giving being ultimately pure, giving dedicated to enlightenment, transcending the created and the uncreated, giving to teach sentient beings, never abandoning them, even to the sight of enlightenment, giving with its 3 spheres pure, observing the giver, receiver, and gift with right, realistic awareness as being like space. Those are called the 3 spheres of a gift. The giver, receiver, and gift, with realistic awareness as being like space. Based on these 10 principles, enlightening beings can accomplish the supreme, pure, magnanimous giving of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure discipline of body, guarding themselves from evil deeds, pure discipline of speech, getting rid of faults of speech, pure discipline of mind, forever getting rid of greed, hatred, and false views, the pure discipline of not destroying any subjects of study, being honorable leaders among people, the pure discipline of preserving the aspiration for enlightenment, not liking the lesser vehicles of individual salvation, the pure discipline of preserving the regulations of the Buddha, greatly fearing even minor offenses, the pure discipline of secret protection, skillfully drawing out undisciplined sentient beings, the pure discipline of not doing any evil, vowing to practice all virtuous principles, the pure discipline of detachment from all views of existence, having no attachment to precepts, the pure discipline of protecting all sentient beings, activating great compassion. Based on these 10 principles, enlightening beings can attain the supreme, flawless, pure discipline of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure tolerance calmly enduring slander and vilification to protect sentient beings, pure tolerance calmly enduring weapons to protect self and others, pure tolerance not arousing anger and viciousness, the mind being unshakable, pure tolerance not attacking the low, being magnanimous when above, pure tolerance saving all who come for refuge, giving up one's own life, pure tolerance free from conceit, not slighting the uncultivated, pure tolerance not becoming angered at injury because of observation of illusoriness, pure tolerance not revenging offenses because of not seeing self and other, pure tolerance not following addictions, being detached from all objects, pure tolerance knowing all things have no origin, in accord with the true knowledge of enlightening beings, entering the realm of universal knowledge without depending on the instruction of another. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain all Buddha's supreme tolerance of truth, understanding without depending on another. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure energy, pure physical energy to attend Buddhas, enlightening beings, teachers, and elders, honoring fields of blessings, never retreating, pure verbal energy, extensively explaining to others whatever teachings they learn and praising the virtues of Buddhahood without wearying. Pure mental energy, able to enter and exit kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, meditations, liberations, and concentrations without cease. Pure energy of honesty, being free from deceptiveness, flattery, deviousness, and dishonesty, not regressing in any of their efforts. Pure energy of determination on increasing progress, always intent on seeking higher and higher knowledge, aspiring to embody all good and pure qualities. Unwasteful, pure energy, embodying charity, morality, tolerance, learning, and diligence, continuing unceasingly until enlightenment. Pure energy conquering all demons, able to extirpate greed, hatred, delusion, false views, and all other bonds and veils of addiction. Pure energy, fully developing the light of knowledge, being carefully observant in all actions, consummating them all, preventing later regret, and attaining all the unique qualities of Buddhahood. Pure energy without coming or going, attaining true knowledge, entering the door of the realm of reality, body, speech, and mind, all impartial, understanding forms are formless and having no attachments. Pure energy developing the light of the teaching, transcending all stages and attaining the coronation of Buddhas, and with all uncontaminated body manifesting the appearances of death and birth, of leaving home and attaining enlightenment, of teaching and passing away, fulfilling such tasks of universal good, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme great energy of Buddhahood. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure meditation. Pure meditation, always gladly leaving home, giving up all possessions. Pure meditation, finding genuine good companions to teach the right way. Pure meditation, living in the forest, enduring wind and rain and so on, being detached from self and possessions. Pure meditation, leaving clamorous sentient beings, always enjoying tranquil silence, pure meditation with harmonious mental activity, guarding the senses, pure meditation with mind and cognition silent, impervious to all sounds and nettles of meditational concentration, pure meditation aware of the methods of the path of enlightenment, contemplating them all and actually realizing them, pure meditation detached from clinging to all experiences, neither grasping nor rejecting the realm of desire, pure meditation awakening psychic knowledge, knowing the faculties and natures of all sentient beings, pure meditation with freedom of action, entering into the concentration of Buddhas and knowing there is no self. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme pure meditation of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure wisdom. Pure wisdom knowing all causes, not denying consequences. Pure wisdom knowing all conditions, not ignoring combination. Pure wisdom knowing a non-alienation and non-permanence, comprehending interdependent origination truly. Pure wisdom extracting all views, neither grasping nor rejecting characteristics of sentient beings. Pure wisdom observing the mental activities of all sentient beings, knowing they are illusory. Pure wisdom with vast intellectual power, distinguishing all truths and being unhindered in dialogue. Pure wisdom unknowable to demons, false teachers, or followers of the vehicles of individual salvation, deeply penetrating the knowledge of all Buddhas. Pure wisdom seeing the subtle reality body of all Buddhas, seeing the essential purity of all sentient beings, seeing that all phenomena are quiescent, and seeing that all lands are the same as space, knowing all characteristics without impediment. Pure wisdom with all powers of mental command, analytic abilities, liberative means, and ways of transcendence, fostering the attainment of all supreme knowledge. Pure wisdom instantly uniting with adamantine knowledge, comprehending the equality of all things, attaining the most honorable knowledge of all things. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the unobstructed great wisdom of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure benevolence. Impartial pure benevolence, caring for all sentient beings without discrimination. Helpful pure benevolence, bringing happiness by whatever they do. I must say, Tom likes to translate love, Maitri, as benevolence, sometimes as kindness, because of the ambiguity of the English love. Love being wishing the happiness of others and therefore wishing them well. So benevolence is really quite okay. But you know, this is love. We're talking about love with benevolence. If we could say loving benevolence if you wanted to be more effusive. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure loving benevolence, impartial pure loving benevolence, caring for all sentient beings without discrimination, helpful pure loving benevolence, bringing happiness by whatever they do, pure loving benevolence, taking care of people in the same way as oneself, ultimately bringing about emancipation from birth and death for them. Pure benevolence, loving benevolence, not abandoning the world, the mind always focused on accumulating roots of goodness. Pure loving benevolence, able to bring liberation, causing all sentient beings to annihilate all addictions. Pure loving benevolence, generating enlightenment, inspiring all sentient beings to seek omniscience. Pure loving benevolence, unobstructed by the world, radiating great light, illuminating everywhere equally. Pure loving benevolence, filling space, reaching everywhere to save sentient beings. Pure loving benevolence focused on truth, realizing the truth of thusness. Pure loving benevolence without object, entering enlightening beings' detachment from life. Entering enlightening beings' detachment from life. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme vast pure benevolence of Buddhahood. This last one is so important because it is just seeing the bliss of everyone, seeing bliss there instead of a being is the most loving benevolence you can have. Whether you don't see that being as an object needing your loving benevolence. Because you see the bliss in them, and that seeing of the bliss in them elicits the bliss in them in their own consciousness in the most powerful way. So that is Shunyata Karuna Garbham. That is the emptiness, the womb of compassion, where freedom from suffering really just arises by the vision of emptiness. Through the openness to emptiness. It is the clear light of emptiness. That is why pure loving benevolence focused on truth, realizing the truth of thusness, thusness meaning transcendence, pure loving benevolence without object, entering enlightening beings' detachment from life. You're in transcendence, and yet you're there with them, and yet you don't see any difference between yourself and them, and therefore then you enter into their own detachment from life. Freedom, that is. Life there meaning some kind of pursuit of something else. Life and death, birth and death, actually. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme, vast, pure benevolence of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure compassion. Pure compassion without companion, as they make their determination independently. Tireless, pure compassion, not considering it troublesome to endure pain on the behalf of all sentient beings. Pure compassion, taking on birth in difficult situations for the purpose of liberating sentient beings. Pure compassion, taking on birth in pleasant conditions to show impermanence. Pure compassion for the sake, that's like going to the heavens to show the deities that they won't be there forever, so they should use their free time in their heavens of pleasure and so on, power, to achieve awareness. Pure compassion for the sake of wrongly fixated sentient beings, never giving up on their vow of universal liberation. Pure compassion, not clinging to personal pleasure, giving happiness to all sentient beings. Pure compassion, not seeking reward, purifying their mind. Pure compassion, able to remove delusion by explaining the truth. Great enlightening beings know all things are in essence pure and have no clinging or irritation, but suffering is experienced because of addictions of adventitious defilements. Knowing this, they conceive great compassion for sentient beings. This is called essential purity, as they explain to them that all things are like the tracks of birds in the sky, but that sentient beings' eyes are clouded by delusion, and they cannot clearly realize this. Observing them, enlightening beings conceive great compassion, and this is called true knowledge, as they teach them the principle of nirvana. These are 10 kinds of pure compassion based on which enlightening beings attain the supremely great compassion of Buddha. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure joy. The pure joy of aspiring to enlightenment, the pure joy of relinquishing all possessions, the pure joy of not rejecting undisciplined sentient beings but teaching them and maturing them, the pure joy of being able to tolerate evil-doing sentient beings and vowing to save and liberate them, the pure joy of giving one's life in search of truth without regret, the pure joy of giving up sensual pleasures and always taking pleasure in truth, the pure joy of inducing sensual beings to give up material pleasures and always take pleasure in truth, the pure joy of cosmic equanimity, tirelessly honoring and serving all Buddhas they see, the pure joy of teaching all sentient beings to enjoy meditations, liberations, and concentrations, and to freely enter and emerge from them, the pure joy of gladly carrying out all austere practices that accord with the way of enlightening beings and realizing the tranquil, imperturbable, supreme calmness and wisdom of the sage. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supremely great joy of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of pure equanimity. The pure equanimity of not becoming emotionally attached to sentient beings who honor and support them. The pure equanimity of not being angered at sentient beings who slight and revile them. The pure equanimity of always being in the world but not being affected by the vicissitudes of worldly things. The pure equanimity of instructing sentient beings who are fit for the teaching at the appropriate times, while not conceiving aversion for sentient beings who are not fit for the teachings. The pure equanimity of not seeking the states of learning or non-learning of the two lesser vehicles. The pure equanimity of the mind always being aloof from all desires that are conducive to addiction. The pure equanimity of not seeking the states of learning or non-learning of the two lesser vehicles. The pure equanimity of the mind always being, because that would mean you would be showing partiality if you did seek the states of learning or even non-learning of the arhatship of the two lesser vehicles. The pure equanimity of the mind always being alert because of the dualism of those lesser vehicles. The pure equanimity of the mind always being aloof from all desires that are conducive to addiction. The pure equanimity of not praising the two lesser vehicles, aversion to birth and death. The pure equanimity of avoiding worldly talk that is not of nirvana, talk that is not dispassionate, talk that is not according to truth, talk that disturbs others, talk of individual salvation, and in general all talk that obstructs the path of enlightening beings. The pure equanimity of waiting for the appropriate times to teach sentient beings whose faculties are mature and have developed mindfulness and precise awareness, but do not yet know the supreme truth. The pure equanimity of waiting for the appropriate times to teach sentient beings whom the enlightening being has already instructed in the past, but who cannot be tamed until the enlightening being reaches Buddhahood. The pure equanimity of not considering people as higher or lower, being free from grasping and rejection, being aloof from all kinds of discriminatory notions, always being rightly concentrated, penetrating truth, and attaining tolerance. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supremely pure equanimity of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of principle: the principle of great learning, steadfastly putting it into practice; the principle of truth, skillfully thinking about it and discerning it; the principle of emptiness, the ultimate truth being emptiness; the principle of silence and calm, being detached, ultimate truth being emptiness; the principle of silence and calm, being detached from the clamor and confusion of sentient beings, according with truth. Sentient beings, that's it. The principle of inexpressibility, not clinging to words. The principle of according with truth, realizing that past, present, and future are equal. The principle of the realm of reality, all things being one in essence. The principle of true thusness in all who realize thusness enter it. The principle of the limit of reality, realizing ultimate truth. The principle of great ultimate nirvana, extinguishing all suffering, yet carrying out the practices of enlightening beings. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme principle of omniscience. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of law: the law of truth, practicing what they teach; the law of detachment from clinging, detaching from both the clinger and that which is clung to; the law of non-contention, being free from all confusing conflicts; the law of silent extinction, extinguishing all irritations; the law of dispassion, all covetousness being ended; the law of freedom from false notions, all arbitrary conceptualization, clinging to objects permanently ceasing; the law of birthlessness, being immovable as space; the law of the uncreated, being detached from appearances of origin, subsistence, and annihilation; the law of basic essence, being inherently pure; the law of abandoning all nirvana, the law of abandoning all nirvana in which there is still suffering, to be able to generate all practices of enlightening beings and carry them out uninterruptedly. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supremely great law of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of virtues instrumental in fostering enlightenment. Urging sentient beings to generate the aspiration for enlightenment is one of enlightening beings' virtues, instrumental in fostering enlightenment, because it perpetuates the 3 treasures. Following the 10 kinds of dedication is one of the enlightening beings' virtues, instrumental in fostering enlightenment, because it stops all that is not good and accumulates all that is good. Wisely guiding and teaching is one of the enlightening beings' virtues, instrumental in fostering enlightenment, because it transcends the virtues of the worlds of desire, form, and formlessness. Indefatigability of mind is one of the enlightening beings' virtues, instrumental in fostering enlightenment, because thereby they finally liberate all sentient beings. Relinquishing all internal and external possessions is one of enlightening beings' virtues, instrumental in fostering enlightenment, because of having no attachment to anything at all. Working unflaggingly to fully develop spiritual refinement is one of the enlightening beings' virtues, instrumental in fostering enlightenment, by opening the gate of great charity without limit. Dedicating all roots of goodness, superior, middling, or lesser, to supreme enlightenment without slighting any is one of the enlightening beings' virtues, instrumental in fostering enlightenment. Being consonant with skill in arts and means. Generating great compassion for bad sentient beings who are mean and fixed on error, not despising them, is one of enlightening beings' virtue, instrumental in fostering enlightenment, by virtue of always activating the heart of universal commitment of great people. Honoring and observing all Buddhas, thinking of all enlightening beings as Buddhas, and bringing joy to all sentient beings is one of enlightening beings' virtues, instrumental in fostering enlightenment, as they keep their original will most firm and steadfast. Great enlightening beings accumulate roots of goodness over measureless aeons, wishing to retain realization of supreme enlightenment themselves as though it were in their palm. Yet they give away all their roots of goodness to all sentient beings without any grief or regret, their minds being as broad as space. This is a virtue of enlightening beings, instrumental in fostering enlightenment, as they develop great wisdom and realize great truth. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can embody the supremely great mass of virtues of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of knowledge, instrumental in fostering enlightenment. They associate with learned, genuine teachers and respectfully attend them, obeying them in every way, not deviating from their instructions. This is one, being totally honest without falsehood. They give up conceit forever as they are always humble and respectful. Their thoughts, words, and deeds are free from coarseness. They are harmonious and agreeable and do not prevaricate. This is the second, as these beings become capable of bearing the Buddha teaching. They are mentally collected, awake, always alert, never distracted or confused, conscientious and agreeable. Their minds are calm and imperturbable. They always remember the 6 thoughts, always practice the 6-fold respect, and always abide by the 6 principles of steadfastness. This is the third, being a way to develop 10-fold knowledge. They take pleasure in truth and principle, always enjoying listening to teaching of truth, abandoning worldly philosophies and theses, always concentrating on listening to transcendental talk, leaving the lesser vehicles of individual salvation behind and entering the vehicle wisdom of the great vehicle of universal salvation. This is the fourth, single-mindedly recollecting without distraction. They bear the 6 ways of transcendence in mind wholeheartedly, having already perfected the practice of the 4 immeasurable minds, follow the methods of illumination and skillfully put them into practice. They earnestly question intelligent people of knowledge, avoiding bad tendencies and aims for good ways. Their minds always like contemplation with right recollection. They subdue their own feelings and protect the minds of others. This is the 5th, firmly executing true practice. They always appreciate emancipation and do not cling to the world. They are always aware of emancipation and they are always aware of their own minds and never have any evil thoughts. They have done away with greed, anger, and malevolence, and their thoughts, words, and deeds are all good. They have certain knowledge of the inherent nature of mind. This is the 6th, able to purify one's own and others' minds. Able to purify one's own and others' minds. They observe the 5 clusters as being like the illusory phenomena, the 5 aggregates, the 5 heaps, the 5 clusters, psychophysical processes, as being like illusory phenomena, the elements like poisonous snakes, the sense media like desolate villages, all things as like illusions, flames, reflections, dreams, shadows, echoes, images, like paintings in the sky, like a turning wheel of fire, like the colors of the rainbow, like sunlight and moonlight, sightless and formless, neither permanent nor ending, nor coming nor going, not abiding either. Contemplating in this way, they know all things have no origin and no destruction. This is the 7th, knowing that the essential nature of all things is empty and quiescent. When great enlightening beings hear that things have no self, no being, no soul, no person, no mind, no object, no greed, no anger, no delusion, no body, no thing, no master, no sustenance, no attachment, and no action, all of these having no existence, being ultimately nil, having heard this, they deeply believe it without doubt or repudiation. And this is the 8th, being able to complete understanding, being able to perfect complete understanding. Great enlightening beings tame their faculties well, and they cultivate action according to truth. They always abide in tranquility and insight, and their minds are silent and calm, with no disturbing thoughts arising. They have no self, no person, no fabrication, no conditioning, no idea of self doing anything, no excess or lack, and no sense of attainment or of this either. Their physical, verbal, and mental mental actions have no coming or going, no energy, no vigor. They see all things and all beings impartially and do not dwell on anything. They are neither of this world nor beyond it, notions of here and there being inherently irrelevant. They come from nowhere and go nowhere. They always meditate in this way by means of knowledge and wisdom, and this is the 9th teaching, reaching transcendence of forms of discriminations. Because great enlightening beings see the principle of interdependent origination, they see the purity of things. Because they see the purity of things, they see the purity of lands. Because they see the purity of lands, they see the purity of space. Because they see the purity of space, they see the purity of the realm of reality. Because they see the purity of the realm of reality, they see the purity of knowledge. This is the 10th, cultivating and accumulating all knowledge. These are enlightening beings, 10 kinds of knowledge instrumental in fostering enlightenment, based on which they can attain the Buddha's store of unimpeded, pure, subtle knowledge of all truths. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of sufficiency of insight, skillfully analyzing all things, not grasping or clinging to anything, divorcing all deluded views, illuminating all senses with the light of knowledge, skillfully generating rightly directed energy, being able to deeply penetrate knowledge of absolute truth, extinguishing the actions of addictions and developing the knowledge of extinction and knowledge of birthlessness, observing everywhere with the knowledge of the celestial eye, knowing the purity of the past by the recollection of past states, annihilating the contaminations of sentient being by the spiritual knowledge of ending contamination. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme illumination of all teachings of the Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of quest for truth with a straightforward mind, being free from dishonesty, diligent quest for truth, being free from laziness, wholly devoted quest for truth, not begrudging their lives, quest for truth to destroy all sentient beings' afflictions, not doing it for fame, profit, or respect, quest for truth to benefit self and others, all sentient beings, not just helping themselves, quest for truth to enter knowledge and wisdom, not taking pleasure in literature, quest for truth, quest for truth, vain literature, quest for truth to leave birth and death, not craving worldly pleasures, quest for truth to liberate sentient beings, engendering the determination for enlightenment, quest for truth to resolve the doubts of all sentient beings, to free them from vacillation, quest for truth to fulfill Buddhahood, not being inclined to lesser aims. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain great knowledge of all elements of Buddhahood without being instructed by another. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of understanding of truth, generating and developing roots of goodness in accord with the conventional world is the way of understanding of truth of unenlightened ordinary people. I'm doing it again. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of understanding of truth. Generating and developing roots of goodness in accord with the conventional world is the way of understanding the truth of unenlightened ordinary people. Attaining indestructible faith, aware of the essence of things, is the way of understanding truth of people acting according to faith, leaving behind erroneous ways and turning to the eightfold right path, is the way people aiming for stream entering understand truth. Getting rid of bonds, putting an end to the contaminations of truth and death, and seeing reality is the stream enterer's understanding of truth. Seeing, tasting as affliction, and knowing no coming or going in the once returner's understanding of truth, not taking pleasure in the world, seeking to end contamination, not having so much as a single thought of attachment to life, is the non-returner's unattached understanding of truth. Attaining the 6 spiritual powers, is the non-returner's understanding of truth. These are going through the different stages of being, which are the same stages for the individual vehicle practices, but these are done, and this is now in the Bodhisattva enlightening beings' way of doing them, because they're the same, but they're just done with the motivation for all rather than just for oneself. But it's the same set of stages. So is the non-returner's understanding of truth, attaining the 6 spiritual, then again, attaining the 6 spiritual powers, 8 liberations, 9 concentration states, and 4 special knowledges, all fully developed, is the saint's understanding of truth. Naturally being truth, that's a saint, the Arhat himself. Naturally being, or herself, naturally being inclined to contemplate uniform interdependent origination, the mind always tranquil and content, having few concerns, understanding causality, awakening on one's own without depending on another, accomplishing various kinds of spiritual knowledge, is the individual illuminates understanding of truth. That's the Pratyeka Buddha. Having vast, always focused on dependent origination. Having vast knowledge, all faculties clear and sharp, always inclined to liberate all sentient beings, diligently cultivating virtue and knowledge to foster enlightenment, fully developing Buddha's 10 powers, fearlessnesses, and other attributes, is the enlightening being's understanding of truth. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the understanding of truth of the supreme great knowledge of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 norms of practice: honoring the wise, always being alerted by the celestial spirits, always having shame and conscience before the Buddhas, having pity for sentient beings and not abandoning birth and death, carrying tasks through to consummation without change of mind, single-mindedly following the enlightening beings who aspire to universal enlightenment and diligently learning, getting rid of wrong views and earnestly seeking the right path, destroying demons in the actions of addictions, knowing the different faculties and temperaments of sentient beings, and teaching them to enable them to live in a state of Buddhahood, abiding in the infinitely vast cosmos of reality, removing addictions and purifying the body. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the Buddha's supreme method of practice. For great enlightening beings, there are 10 kinds of demons. The demon of the clusters of mental and material elements, giving rise, that's the aggregates of mental and material elements, giving rise to attachment. The demon of addictions, perpetually confusing and defiling. The demon of actions, able to obstruct and inhibit. The demon of life, the demon of mind, which gives rise to pride. The demon of death, which abandons life. The demon of heaven, being self-indulgent. The demon of roots of goodness, because of perpetual clinging. The demon of there is even a demon of roots and goodness because of perpetual clinging. The demon of concentration, because you always give your roots of goodness away and don't cling to them. The demon of concentration, because of long indulgence in the experience. Getting hooked on meditation, addicted to meditation, that is. The demon of spiritual teachers, because of giving rise to feelings of attachment, getting too attached to your guru, to your Gewa Shenyan, spiritual friend. The demon of the phenomenon of enlightenment, because of not wanting to relinquish it. Great enlightening beings should apply appropriate means to quickly escape these demons. So enlightenment itself can become a demon if you get stuck, if it's something that you think you can get stuck in. For great enlightening beings, there are 10 kinds of demons' actions: cultivating roots of goodness while forgetting the aspiration for enlightenment, giving with ill will, keeping precepts with hatred, rejecting people of bad character, rejecting the slothful, slighting the confused, and despising the ignorant, being jealous and stingy with the profound teaching, not explaining it to those who are capable of being enlightened, insisting on explaining it to people without the capacity for it as long as wealth and honor are thereby available, not liking to hear about the ways of transcendence, not practicing them even when hearing about them, tending to negligence even when practicing them, becoming narrow and mean in spirit because of laziness and not seeking supreme great enlightenment, avoiding good companions, associating with bad companions, craving personal release, not wanting to accept life, wishing for the desireless and tranquility of nirvana, arousing hatred and anger toward enlightening beings, looking at them with malevolent eye, looking for faults in them, talking of their faults, cutting off their support, repudiating their true teaching and being averse to hearing it, immediately criticizing it when hearing it, having no respect for those who expound it, claiming oneself to be right and others all wrong, indulging in the study of secular literature, expounding the vehicles of individual salvation while obscuring the profound teaching, or giving subtle doctrines to unsuitable people, straying from enlightenment and persisting in false paths, always liking to associate with those who are already liberated and at peace, and giving them offerings while not being willing to approach or edify those who have not yet attained liberation or peace, developing conceit, having no respect, often troubling or hurting sentient beings, not seeking genuine knowledge of truth, being mean to sentient beings, not seeking genuine knowledge of being mean and difficult to awaken. These are the 10 kinds of demons' actions which enlightening beings should quickly get away from to seek enlightened action. They're all seemingly good things, but they're bad when you do it in this conceited way. Great enlightening beings have 10 ways of getting rid of demons' actions, associating with the wise and honoring and serving them, not elevating themselves or praising themselves, believing in the profound teaching of Buddha without repudiating it, never forgetting their determination for omniscience, diligently cultivating refined practices, never being lax, always seeking all the teaching that enlightening beings always expound, teachings for enlightening beings, always expounding the truth tirelessly, taking refuge with all the Buddhas of the 10 directions, thinking of them as saviors and protectors, faithfully accepting and remembering the support of the spiritual power of the Buddha, equally planting the same roots of goodness with all enlightening beings. Praised on these 10, enlightening beings can escape all demonic ways. Great enlightening beings have 10 ways of seeing Buddhas. The Buddha of abiding in the world, attaining true enlightenment, they see by non-attachment. They see the Buddha of vows of reduction. They see the Buddha of rewards of action by deep faith. They are the Buddha of preservation by following up the teaching. They see the Buddhas of nirvana by deeply entering it. They see the cosmic Buddha everywhere. They see the Buddhas of mind by peaceful stability. They see the Buddha of concentration by infinite independence. They see the Buddha of fundamental essence by clear comprehension. They see the Buddha of adaptation by universal awareness. By these, they always see the Supreme Buddha. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of Buddha action. Guiding at appropriate times is Buddha. Guiding at appropriate times is Buddha action because it fosters correct cultivation of practice. Causing dream visions is Buddha action because it awakens awareness of past roots of goodness. Expounding to others scriptures that they have not yet heard is Buddha action because it causes growth of knowledge and resolution of doubts. Teaching the way to emancipation to those bound up in regrets is Buddha action because it frees them from a doubting mind. Meditating the glorified body of Buddha for the sake of sentient beings with stingy minds, ignorant minds, minds interested in personal salvation, malevolent minds, doubting minds, scattered minds, or conceited minds is Buddha action because it nurtures past roots of goodness. Widely expounding the true teaching in times when true teaching is difficult to come across, causing those who hear it to attain concentrated knowledge and knowledge of spiritual powers, to be able to benefit innumerable sentient beings is Buddha action because the resolution is pure. If anything demonic occurs, being able to manifest a voice equal to space, explaining the principle of not harming others in order to quell it, causing the awakening of understanding and causing the majesty of demons who hear to vanish, is Buddha action because the will is extraordinary and the power great. The mind having no lapse, being constantly alert, not permitting experiential entry into the absolute state of individual liberation, and never speaking of the realm of liberation to those whose faculties and characters are not yet mature, is Buddha action because it is the performance of the original vow. Shedding all the bonds and contaminations of birth and death, cultivating the practices of enlightening beings continuously, taking care of sentient beings with great compassion, causing them to undertake such practice and eventually be liberated, is Buddha action because it does not stop the practice of the deeds of enlightening beings. Enlightening beings realize that their own bodies as well as sentient beings are fundamentally quiescent and null, yet not being surprised or afraid, they still tirelessly cultivate virtue and knowledge. Though they know all things have no creation, yet they do not ignore the individual characteristics of things. Though they are forever aloof of craving for objects, yet they always gladly behold the form bodies of Buddhas. Though they know one is enlightened into the truth without depending on another, yet they seek omniscience through many kinds of methods. Though they know all lands are like space, they always enjoy adorning all Buddha lands. Though they always observe sentient beings though fundamentally unmoving in the cosmos of reality, yet they maintain a multitude of transformations by spiritual powers. Though they have already accomplished omniscience, yet they practice the acts of enlightening beings without ceasing. Though they know all things are inexplicable, yet they turn the wheel of the pure teaching and gladden the hearts of all beings. Though they are able to manifest the spiritual powers of Buddhas, yet they do not reject embodiment as enlightening beings. Though they appear to enter ultimate final extinction, they manifest birth in all places, being able to perform these practices simultaneously carrying out the provisional and true is Buddha action. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can achieve supreme teacherless great action without relying on the instruction of another. For great enlightening beings, there are 10 kinds of conceited action. Not respecting teachers, parents, mendicants, people on the right path, people aiming for the right path or honorable fields of blessings is conceited action. If there are teachers who have attained to supreme truth, who ride the great vehicle of universal enlightenment, who know the way to emancipation, who have attained mental command and expound the great principles of the scriptures, to be haughty toward them or their teachings and to be disrespectful is conceited action. when in an audience hearing the sublime teaching expounded, to be unwilling to laud its excellence and cause others to believe and accept it is conceited action. Habitually conceiving the illusion of superiority, elevating oneself and looking down on others, not seeing one's own faults, not knowing one's own shortcomings, is conceited action. Habitually imagining that one is better than those who are better than oneself, not praising virtuous people who are praiseworthy, and not being happy with when others praise them, is conceited action. When seeing someone preach in spite of knowing it is the norm, the rule, the truth, the word of Buddha, to despise the teaching because of disliking the person, to slander it and incite others to slander it, is conceited action. Seeking a high seat for oneself, declaring oneself to be a teacher worthy of receiving offerings and not supposed to work, failing to rise to greet old people who have cultivated spiritual practice for a long time, being unwilling to serve them, is conceited action. Frowning unhappily on seeing people with virtue, speaking to them harshly and looking for faults in them, is conceited action. When seeing intelligent people who know the truth, not being willing to approach and attend them, respect and honor them, being unwilling to ask them what is good and what is not good, what should be done and what should not be done, what acts result in various benefits and comforts in the long night, being foolish and deluded, stubborn and contentious, swallowed by self-importance, never able to see the way to emancipation, is conceited action. When there are also sentient beings with minds shrouded by conceit, who when Buddhas appear in the world are unable to approach, respect and honor them, in them no new good arises, and goodness from the past evaporates and vanishes. They say what they should not, they contend where they should not. In the future they will surely fall into a deep pit of danger and will not even encounter Buddha, much less hear the teaching for hundreds of thousands of aeons. Though because of having once conceived the aspiration for enlightenment, they will in the end wake up on their own. This is conceited action. If enlightening beings get rid of these 10 kinds of conceited actions, they will attain 10 kinds of actions of knowledge. The 10 kinds of actions of knowledge are believing in consequences of action and not denying causality, not giving up the determination for enlightenment, always remembering the Buddhas, attending the wise, respecting and providing for them, honoring them, tirelessly enjoying the teachings and their meanings, never tiring of them, getting rid of wrong awareness and cultivating true awareness, getting rid of haughtiness toward all sentient beings, thinking of enlightening beings as Buddhas, vaunting the true teaching as much as one's own being, honoring the enlightened as though protecting one's own life, thinking of practitioners as Buddhas, being free from all that is not good in thought, word, and deed, praising the excellences of sages and saints, and according with enlightenment, not denying interdependent origination, getting rid of false views, destroying darkness and attaining light, illuminating all things, acting in accord with the 10 kinds of dedication, thinking of the ways of transcendence as one's mother, thinking of skillful means as one's father, and entering the house of enlightenment with a profound, pure mind, diligently accumulating all practices that foster enlightenment, such as charity, morality, learning, cessation and contemplation, virtue and wisdom, indefatigably cultivating any practice that is praised by the Buddhas, that can break through the afflictions and conflicts of demons, that can remove all obstruction, veils, shrouds, and bonds, that can teach and tame all sentient beings, that can embrace the truth in accord with knowledge and wisdom, that can purify the Buddha-land, that can generate spiritual capacities and insights. Based on these 10 actions of knowledge, enlightening beings can attain the supreme action of great knowledge of Buddhas, including all skillful arts of liberation. For great enlightening beings, there are 10 kinds of possession by demons. Oh no. Laziness, narrowness, and meanness of aspiration, satisfaction with a little practice, exclusivity, not making great vows, liking to be in tranquil extinction and annihilating addictions, permanently annihilating birth and death, giving up the practices of enlightening beings, not edifying sentient beings, doubting and repudiating the truth. If enlightening beings can get rid of these possessions by demons, they can gain 10 kinds of support by Buddhas. They are supported by Buddhas in first being able to aspire to enlightenment, in preserving the will for enlightenment life after life without letting it be forgotten, in being aware of manias and being able to avoid them, in learning the ways of transcendence and practicing them as taught, in knowing the pains of birth and death yet not rejecting them, in contemplating the most profound truth, in gaining immeasurable reward, in expounding the principles of the two lesser vehicles of salvation for the benefit of sentient beings, without actually grasping the liberation of those vehicles, in happily contemplating the uncreated without dwelling therein, and not thinking of the created and the uncreated as dual, in reaching the realm of birthlessness yet manifesting birth, in realizing universal knowledge yet carrying out the practices of enlightening beings and perpetuating the seed of enlightening beings. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme supportive power of Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of support by truth. Knowing all conditioned states are impermanent, knowing all conditioned states are painful, knowing all conditioned states are identityless, knowing all things are quiescent nirvana, knowing all things are quiescent nirvana, knowing all phenomena arise from conditions and do not come to be without conditions, knowing that ignorance comes from wrong thought, and finally old age and death comes from ignorance. So if wrong thought is extinguished, ignorance is extinguished, and finally old age and death are extinguished. Knowing the 3 doors of liberation and generating the vehicle of hearers, 3 doors of liberation: emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. Realizing the state of non-contention and generating the vehicle of individual illuminates. Knowing the 6 transcendent ways and the 4 means of integration and social graces, generating the great vehicle. Knowing that all lands, all Buddhas, knowing how and all times are spheres of knowledge of Buddhas. Knowing how to cut off all thoughts, abandon all grasping, detach from before and after, in accord with nirvana. Based on these 10, enlightening beings can attain the supreme supportive truth of all Buddhas. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of activities in the heaven of satisfaction. First, they tell the celestials in the heavens of desire the principle of detachment, saying, all dominion is impermanent, all pleasures must fade and vanish, and they urge the gods to aspire to enlightenment. Second, to the gods of the heavens in the realm of form, they explain how to enter and emerge from the meditative and liberative concentrations, and if there are any who become attached to them and therefore regenerate views of the body, erroneous views, nescience, and so on, the enlightened beings explain true wisdom to them. That means of the desire realm body, because they are sort of semi-disembodied. They're neutral, gender-wise neutral. They are energy bodies. So here they mean generate ways of the desire realm body, gendered body. Erroneous views. So second, to the gods of the heavens in the realm of form. So first, let me do this again, because we're not used to these kind of different gods, but they are there in Buddhism. Buddha's view, they are there. Great enlightening beings have 10 kinds of activities in the heaven of satisfaction. That's the Tushita heaven where the Maitreya now is, and Tsongkhapa, and Nagarjuna and people. First, they tell, as well as other places. First, there are bodhisattvas there, of course. First, they tell they're not necessarily, but they're in the body of a being of the god of the heaven of Sushita. First, they tell the gods in the heavens of desire, because Tushita is a desire heaven, the principle of detachment, saying, all dominion is impermanent, all pleasures must fade and vanish. And they urge those gods to aspire to enlightenment. Second, to the gods of the heavens in the realm of form, sort of more contemplative heavens, of pure energy-bodied beings. They explain how to enter and emerge from the meditative and liberative concentrations, and if there are any who become attached to them and therefore regenerate views of the body, erroneous views, nescience, and so on, the enlightening beings explain true wisdom to them. If any conceive a deluded idea of purity of material or immaterial things, they explain that they are not pure and are all impermanent, and thus urge them to aspire to enlightenment. So that's really key, because remember the 4 immeasurables: immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, immeasurable equanimity, or impartiality. These are the planes. Those 4 immeasurables, infinities in a way, are pure energy beings. They're energy planes. They're not involved in the body. When you enter into those, you leave your body of a male or a female in the desire realm, and you find this inner bliss of loving all beings, of wishing them happiness, removing their suffering, of finding joy in the joy of life. and in being completely impartial and universal toward everyone. And therefore you temporarily in those meditations achieve the condition of a form realm deity. And so those who are deities in those realms have so much loved those states that they stay in them, and they become pure energy-bodied beings in those states of pure matter, pure form. It is they have material bodies, but they're pure ones because they're only in the love, compassion, joy, and equanimity states. And actually, the love, it is not like you leave the love when you come to the compassion, you leave the compassion when you come to the joy, you leave the joy and love and compassion when you come to the equanimity, as some people wrongly thought in the past, some scholars. You bring them all with you. So the impartiality or equanimity is equanimity that is joyous and compassionate and loving. And that's the highest Brahma heaven. Okay? Third, in the realm of satisfaction, in the heaven of satisfaction, great enlightening beings enter a concentration called magnificent array of light, and their bodies radiate light illuminating the entire universe. According to the mentalities of sentient beings, they preach to them in various voices, so that the sentient beings, having heard, having pure faith, have pure faith and are reborn in the heaven of satisfaction after death, where the enlightening beings urge them to aspire to enlightenment. Fourth, the great enlightening beings in the heaven of satisfaction, with their unobstructed eyes, see all the enlightening beings in all the heavens of satisfaction in all the 10 directions, so that all the enlightening beings see each other, having seen in such a way that they all see each other. Having seen each other, they discuss the marvelous teaching, that is, descending spiritually into the mother's womb, being born, leaving home, going to the site of enlightenment, being imbued with the magnificent adornments, and also showing the deeds they have been carrying out since ancient times, by which they attained the great knowledge and its virtues, being able to manifest these things without leaving their original places. So that's going in and having a whole life of 12 deeds of a Shakyamuni. Fifth, when a great enlightening being is in the heaven of satisfaction, the enlightening beings in the palaces of all the heavens of satisfaction in the 10 directions come and gather round respectfully. And then the great enlightening being, wishing to enable those enlightening beings to fulfill their vows and to gladden them, expounds teachings according to the states those enlightening beings should abide in, according to what they are to do and what they are to stop, what they are to practice and what they are to realize. Having heard this, the enlightening beings are very happy and freshly inspired and return to the places where they live in their own lands. Sixth, but these now lands are not really lands in the sense they're whole different worlds, universes, where they have all the desire realm and the lower realms and the desire realm heavens, and then the form realm heavens, and then the formless realm heavens. Sixth, when great enlightening beings are in the heaven of satisfaction, the celestial devil, that is the god devil, the devilish god, lord of the realm of desire, in order to spoil and disrupt the work of the enlightening beings, comes to the enlightening beings with a retinue of demons. Then the enlightening beings, in order to crush the array of demons, abide in the state of knowledge of skill in arts of transcendent wisdom, which is included in the adamantine path, and expound the truth to them in both gentle and harsh words, causing the demons to be unable to get the upper hand. And when the demons see the sovereign power of the enlightening beings, they all become inspired to seek supreme enlightenment. Seventh, great enlightening beings in the heaven of satisfaction know that the celestials in the realm of desire do not like to hear the truth. Then the enlightening beings summon the gods in the realm of desire do not like to hear the truth. Then the enlightening beings announce in a loud voice, "Today an enlightening being is going to manifest wonders. Those who wish to see should come at once." Then the gods, celestial gods, having heard this, gather in droves. The enlightening beings, seeing that the gods have gathered, show them wonders in the palace that the celestial gods have never seen or heard of. Having seen these, the celestials are totally enraptured. Then the enlightening beings also produce voices in music, saying, "Benevolent ones, all conditioned states are impermanent, and painful. All things are void of identity. Nirvana is tranquil extinction. They also say you should cultivate the practices of enlightening beings and should fulfill omniscience. When the celestial gods hear this voice of teaching, they grieve and lament and give rise to revulsion and are all inspired to seek enlightenment. That is, the revulsion about just seeking pleasure. That means. Eighth, great enlightening beings are inspired, great enlightening beings living in the palace of the heaven of satisfaction are able, without leaving their original place, to go to the abodes of all the innumerable Buddhas in the 10 directions, see the Buddhas, approach them and pay respect to them, and reverently listen to their teaching. At that time, the Buddhas, in order to enable enlightening beings to attain the supreme state of coronation, explained to them a stage of enlightening beings called all spiritual capacities, in which all supreme virtues are attained by instantaneous realizational wisdom, and they enter the stage of all knowledge. Ninth, great enlightening beings living in the palace of the heaven of satisfaction, wishing to honor the Buddhas, use great spiritual powers to produce various offerings called extraordinarily pleasing, filling all worlds throughout the space of the cosmos, and present them to the Buddhas. When the sentient beings of those worlds see those offerings, all are inspired to seek supreme enlightenment. 10th, great enlightening beings in the heaven of satisfaction set forth infinite teachings like illusions, like reflections, pervading all worlds in the 10 directions, manifesting various forms, various characteristics, various bodies, various modes of conduct, various activities, various methods, various metaphors, various explanations, gladdening all sentient beings according to their mentalities. These are the 10 kinds of activities of enlightening beings in the heaven of satisfaction. If they accomplish these things, they can subsequently be born in the human world. Okay. So I will stop here, bottom of 1102. And we're about to incarnate as a Buddha in the next 20 or 30 pages. But I want to just say what is so fascinating here is this Tushita heaven is still in the desire realm, this heaven of satisfaction. And the one thing that he did not do here, although they said it earlier in the sutra, two things. They were dealing with a lot of the gods and helping them. We're from Tushita so far. Then they descended into the human realm. He's doing. But they didn't go to the formless realm, because of course in the formless realm the beings have no bodies. So I forget in the Abhidharma if they have hearing. I don't think they can hear even. So how do you reach them? So they don't reach them, but they could reach them with light probably. And they just say everywhere in all realms. So that would include those. And it gave me a very interesting insight that those realms where you're sort of completely out of reach, and the hells are similar, sort of almost seemingly impossible to reach. They didn't mention the hells. They mentioned demons in the desire realm heaven. And they mentioned the form realm meditation deities, sort of almost like mind energy deities. But they didn't mention the formless ones. They didn't mention the lowest ones, who are kind of isolated, and you can't reach them. And yet he will be dealing with them, but he didn't. And also they introduced, which we saw earlier when Buddha under the tree was going in all different planes, teaching things in the different desire, but only in the desire realm, again, reaching Tushita, but went beyond Tushita actually also. In the realm of beyond Tushita is Nirmanarati and Paranirmita Vasavada, that is to say, the fantasy realm and the voyeur realm. They're beyond the realm of satisfaction because there's so much satisfaction, but they're still kind of habituated to desire and pleasure. So they have that just pure fantasy, and then voyeurism because they're so jaded they don't need any more pleasure. And then they would enter the meditational realm if they remain worldly. So the Tushita is like a summit of the realm of desire, which is sort of in the middle of the cosmos. And then from that, they branch out to infinite other worlds and connect to them through the Tushita, through their Tushitas. Their Bodhisattvas in Tushitas. So that's quite brilliant and beautiful and fascinating. Okay, so we'll come back on another Saturday night. We dedicate all merit may all beings quickly be reborn in Tushita heaven in order to quickly encounter the future Buddha Maitreya, all beings in our world, and thereby become inspired to become perfect Buddhas themselves, and may they then quickly become perfect Buddhas in the realm of ultimate miracle reality, ultimate reality. May they quickly become Buddhas to become equal to all the Buddhas. So there are more people on the Buddha team and less people on the suffering team.